All right, so we're diving into Grain Brain by Dr. David Perlmutter today.
Yeah, this one is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about this whole connection between carbohydrates and brain health.
Well, yeah, and it's not just refined sugars that he's talking about.
Right.
It's even those like healthy whole grains that we're always told are good for us.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm always trying to get more whole grains in my diet.
Right. Well, get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew
Okay, bring it on.
because he basically argues that this shift to low-fat, high-carb diets
Hmm.
is really at the root of a lot of these brain disorders that we're seeing today.
Okay, so what kind of brain disorders are we talking about here?
Well, he covers a whole range,
Yeah.
from like headaches and brain fog to more serious conditions like Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a pretty serious claim.
Yeah, and he uses this really striking metaphor.
Okay.
He says, imagine your brain like an egg in a frying pan.
Okay.
That's what's happening when you bombard it with too many carbs.
Oh, I see. So he's saying it's basically like damaging our brains.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, well, that definitely got my attention. But
Okay.
I mean, don't we need some level of carbohydrates for energy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our bodies definitely need fuel.
Right.
But his point is that the amount of carbs that we're consuming today
Mm-hmm.
is way more than our bodies were really designed to handle.
I see.
He actually has us imagine like traveling back in time and meeting our hunter-gatherer ancestors.
Okay.
And, they'd be totally shocked by the amount of bread and pasta and sugary drinks that we consume on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Right. And genetically, we're not that different from them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yet we're seeing like this huge increase in chronic diseases, particularly brain disorders.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy how much more common things like Alzheimer's are now.
Exactly.
So are you saying our brains are basically running on the wrong fuel?
That's essentially the core argument of Grain Brain.
Okay.
And he really dives deep into the science behind it. Specifically, this whole sugar-insulin connection.
Right, because when we eat carbs, our blood sugar spikes.
Exactly. And then that triggers the pancreas to release insulin to bring it back down.
Right.
But over time, if this is happening constantly,
Mm-hmm.
it can lead to insulin resistance.
Right. Which is where our cells become less responsive to insulin.
Exactly. And that's when we start to see problems.
And we usually think of insulin resistance in the context of type 2 diabetes, right?
Exactly.
But I guess Dr. Perlmutter is saying that it goes beyond that.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because emerging research is now suggesting that insulin resistance might also play a significant role in Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, wow.
Some researchers are even calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
That's a little unsettling.
Yeah, I mean, most of us know someone who's been affected by Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And to think that our diet could be contributing to that is pretty scary.
It's a pretty big deal. So what he's saying is that our carb-heavy diets could actually be setting the stage for cognitive decline later in life.
That's one of the key takeaways.
Wow.
And it's not just refined sugars that are a concern.
Right.
He's also talking about even whole grains.
Like round rice and quinoa.
Yeah, all those things that we consider to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He points out that they still break down into sugars.
Right.
And they still trigger that same insulin response.
So we really need to rethink our whole understanding of what healthy carbs even are.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I'm also curious about this whole gluten sensitivity thing because I always thought that was only a problem for people with celiac disease.
Right. That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
While celiac disease is obviously a very serious autoimmune reaction to gluten,
Right.
Dr. Perlmutter suggests that gluten can cause a range of neurological issues,
Okay.
even in people who don't have a diagnosed sensitivity.
Interesting.
And he describes patients like one named Fran, who suffered from these debilitating migraines for years.
Oh, wow.
And nothing seemed to help until she went gluten-free.
Like literally just stopped eating gluten?
Yeah, and her headaches completely vanished.
That's crazy.
It's pretty remarkable.
Do you think it's possible that gluten could be flying under the radar for a lot of people
Oh,
and
absolutely.
causing all these problems that they don't even realize are related to food?
I think it's definitely a possibility.
Wow. Okay, so we've got carbs and gluten on the watch list,
Right.
but I know that Grain Brain also gets into another pretty controversial topic,
Yes,
which is cholesterol.
that's a big one.
Because for years, we've been told that high cholesterol is a major health risk,
Absolutely.
especially for heart disease.
Right.
But Dr. Perlmutter seems to be challenging that whole conventional wisdom.
He does, and he cites research suggesting that high cholesterol isn't necessarily the enemy,
Okay.
especially when it comes to brain health. In fact, some studies have even found that people with higher cholesterol levels actually score better on cognitive tests.
Wait, so higher cholesterol is linked to better brain function?
That's what some of the research is showing.
But how is that possible? I mean, we're constantly being told to lower our cholesterol.
Right, but it turns out that cholesterol plays a vital role in the brain.
Okay.
It's essential for building and maintaining brain cell membranes,
Hmm.
and it helps facilitate communication between neurons.
So are you saying that by lowering cholesterol too aggressively, we might actually be depriving our brains of a crucial component?
That's a concern that Dr. Perlmutter raises.
Okay, and that's interesting.
And he actually goes even a step further
Okay.
by suggesting that statins, which are those widely prescribed cholesterol-lowering drugs,
Right.
could have some unintended consequences for brain health.
Mm.
He cites some research from Dr. Stephanie Seneff at MIT,
Okay.
who argues that statins actually block the production of coenzyme Q10.
And what does that do?
Well, coenzyme Q10 is this important antioxidant
Mm-hmm.
that protects cells from damage.
I see.
So without sufficient coenzyme Q10, our brains could be left more vulnerable.
So we're not just talking about diet here. We're also talking about the potential impact of medication on brain health as well.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. This is giving me a lot to think about.
Right.
So we've covered carbs, gluten, cholesterol, and now even statins.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest.
It is, but I mean, what other dietary villains does Dr. Perlmutter call out in Grain Brain?
Well, he dedicates a significant portion of the book to fructose.
Okay, like fruit sugar.
Right, but it's not just about fruit.
Okay.
He's talking about fructose in all its forms,
Okay.
including high fructose corn syrup.
Right, which is in pretty much everything these days.
Yeah, it's pretty ubiquitous.
Okay, so what's so bad about fructose?
Well, you see, while glucose can be used by all the cells in our body,
Mm-hmm.
fructose is primarily processed by the liver,
Okay.
and this can lead to a real overload for the liver,
I see.
contributing to problems like fatty liver disease
Okay.
and the accumulation of visceral fat, which is that dangerous fat that wraps around our organs.
So even though fructose is found naturally in fruit,
Right.
he's saying that excessive consumption, especially from processed foods and sugary drinks,
Exactly.
can have serious consequences.
Absolutely. And he actually compares excessive sugar consumption to smoking.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he argues that if we eliminated excessive sugar,
Mm-hmm.
obesity and its related diseases would plummet.
Okay,
Just like lung cancer would be far less common if cigarettes had never been invented.
that's a pretty powerful statement.
It is, and it really highlights the dangers of sugar.
Wow, okay, so sugar is definitely public enemy number one.
It seems that way.
Okay, but what about these AGs that he mentions?
Oh, AGs.
Yeah, I've never even heard of those before.
Right, AGEs stand for Advanced Glycation End Products.
Okay, that sounds intimidating.
They're these harmful compounds
Okay.
that form when sugar molecules bind to proteins in our body.
Oh, I see.
You can imagine these sugar molecules like little gremlins
Okay.
latching onto and disrupting the function of these vital proteins.
Okay, so what kind of damage do these AGs do?
Well, they're linked to increased inflammation,
Okay.
oxidative stress, and accelerated aging,
And all of that can affect the brain?
especially the brain.
So these AGEs are basically accelerating the aging process in our brains.
Essentially, yes.
But can we even measure, like, the level of AGEs in our body?
Actually, yes, there's a common blood test called hemoglobin A1C
Okay.
that measures the level of glycation in your body.
Okay.
And guess what?
What?
Elevated A1C levels are associated with an increased risk of cognitive decline
Oh, wow.
and even depression.
So this seemingly simple blood test could be giving us valuable insights into our brain health.
It really underscores the interconnectedness of our bodies.
Right, because what we eat doesn't just affect our waistlines.
Exactly.
It directly impacts the health and function of our brains.
Absolutely.
It's kind of crazy to think about all the things we've talked about just in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have carbs, gluten, cholesterol, statins, fructose, AGEs.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to take in, but it's so fascinating how Dr. Perlmutter is challenging conventional thinking about what it means to eat for optimal brain function.
Right. It's a whole new perspective.
But the big question is, what can we actually do about it? What are the solutions?
Well, that's where things get really exciting.
Because he doesn't just leave us hanging with all these problems.
No, he actually provides a concrete plan of action.
Okay, so tell me more about that, because I'm ready for some solutions.
He lays out a 4-week program that's designed to help you shift your lifestyle and really optimize your brain health.
Okay, I'm definitely interested in hearing more about that.
So we left off talking about solutions and Dr. Perlmutter's 4-week program.
Right, yeah, let's dive into that.
So week 1 is all about focus on food.
Okay, makes sense.
And he actually suggests kicking things off with a one-day fast.
A fast, like no food for a whole day.
Yeah, 24 hours.
Wow, that's pretty intense. Is that even safe for everyone?
Well, it's always a good idea to check with your doctor first,
Right,
especially if you have any health conditions.
of course.
But for most healthy people, a one-day fast is generally considered safe.
Okay,
And it could be a really powerful way to just kind of reset your metabolism
I see.
and start shifting your body away from relying on carbs for fuel.
Okay, so like a metabolic reboot.
Exactly.
All right, I'm willing to give it a try.
But we're
But what happens after the fast? What does a grain-brain diet actually look like?
Well, the key is to significantly reduce your carbohydrate intake.
Okay, so less bread and pasta.
Yeah, especially those refined grains and sugars.
So how many carbs are we talking about here?
He recommends limiting carbs to just 30-40 grams per day.
Wow, that seems really low.
It is a big change from the typical American diet.
Yeah, I mean, won't I be starving all the time?
Well, that's the thing. It's not about deprivation. It's about replacing those empty carbs with nutrient-dense foods that will actually keep you feeling full and satisfied.
Okay, so what kinds of foods are we talking about?
Think healthy fats like avocados, olive oil, nuts, seeds.
Okay, those sound good.
And then protein sources like grass-fed meats, fatty fish, eggs,
Got it.
and of course lots of non-starchy vegetables.
Okay, so it's about making smarter choices, not necessarily eating less.
Exactly.
Got it. But I also know that Dr. Perlmutter recommends some specific supplements as well.
He does, and one of his top recommendations is DHA.
DHA, what's that?
It's a type of omega-3 fatty acid
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
that plays a crucial role in brain health.
Okay.
It's a major component of brain cell membranes
Mm-hmm.
and essential for communication between neurons.
But are supplements really necessary? I mean, can't we just get DHA from food?
Well, you can get some DHA from foods like fatty fish,
Okay.
but it's often difficult to get enough through diet alone.
I see.
And there's a growing body of research suggesting that DHA supplements can really benefit the brain.
Like in what ways?
Well, studies have shown that DHA can improve cognitive function,
Okay.
memory, mood, and even help protect against age-related decline.
Okay, so DHA is going on my shopping list.
Good.
What other supplements does he recommend?
Well, he's also a big advocate for probiotics.
Probiotics. Aren't those for gut health?
They are, but it turns out that gut health and brain health are actually closely connected.
Really? I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area of research.
Okay.
There's increasing evidence that an unhealthy gut can contribute to a range of neurological problems.
Like what kinds of problems?
Things like brain fog, anxiety, even depression.
So taking care of our gut bacteria is kind of like taking care of our brains.
Exactly.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is. And in addition to probiotics, Dr. Perlmutter also recommends vitamin D,
Okay.
curcumin, and alpha-lipoic acid.
Those all sound familiar.
They've all been shown to have brain protective properties.
Okay, so we're nourishing our brains from the inside out
Right.
with a brain-free diet and some targeted supplements.
That's the idea.
All right, what's next on the agenda?
Well, week 2 is all about focus on exercise.
Okay, I can get behind that.
And we're not just talking about like a leisurely stroll around the block.
Okay, so what kind of exercise are we talking about?
He emphasizes the importance of aerobic exercise,
Okay.
the kind that really gets your heart rate up and increases blood flow to the brain.
So like running, swimming, biking.
Yeah, all of those things.
Uh,
Or even just a brisk walk, dancing, anything that gets you moving.
Okay, I can do that.
The key is to find activities you enjoy and that you can do consistently.
Right, because if you don't like it, you're not going to stick with it.
Exactly. He recommends aiming for at least 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
All right, I can definitely make time for that.
Good.
But what if I'm already someone who exercises regularly? Does he suggest anything specific to boost those brain benefits?
Well, he's a big proponent of trying new activities
Okay.
to challenge your brain and body in different ways.
Okay.
So this could be anything from joining a dance class
Okay.
or taking up a new sport.
I've always wanted to try rock climbing.
There you go.
Or maybe just adding some interval training to my usual routine.
Perfect.
So it's about keeping things interesting and stimulating for both our minds and bodies.
Exactly.
All right, so we've tackled diet and exercise.
We have
What's week 3 all about?
week 3 is focus on sleep.
Ah, sleep. That's always a good one.
And it's not just about getting enough hours. It's about prioritizing quality sleep.
Right, because I know that sleep is crucial for memory and learning and all of that.
It is. And he really emphasizes the importance of establishing a consistent sleep-wake cycle,
Okay.
creating a relaxing bedtime routine.
So like a hot bath and a good book.
Exactly.
Okay.
And making sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool.
Those are all good tips. But what if you've tried all that and you still can't sleep?
Well, he suggests exploring some relaxation techniques,
Ah.
like meditation or deep breathing exercises,
Mm-hmm.
or even just listening to calming music before bed to
Okay.
kind of help ease your mind and prepare for sleep.
So it's about addressing both the physical and the mental aspects of sleep.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that holistic approach. All right, we've made it to week 4.
We have.
What's the final focus?
Week 4 is all about establishing healthy habits for life.
So this is where we take everything we've learned and make it stick.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
It's about integrating these changes into a sustainable, long-term lifestyle.
Okay, because it's easy to follow a program for a few weeks,
Right.
but how do we make these changes last?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of consistency,
Okay.
but not in a rigid, all-or-nothing kind of way.
Okay, good, because I'm not perfect.
None of us are. He actually advocates for what he calls the 90-10 rule.
The 90-10 rule, what's that?
Basically, it means that you aim to eat well 90% of the time,
Okay.
and then you allow yourself some flexibility for those special occasions or indulgences.
Oh, I like that. That sounds much more realistic.
It is. It takes the pressure off.
Right, because we all have those slip-ups.
Exactly. And he encourages self-compassion.
Okay.
He reminds us that every day is a new opportunity to make healthy choices.
I love that mindset.
It's about progress, not perfection.
It is, but let's get practical for a moment.
Okay.
This all sounds great in theory,
Mm-hmm.
but what are some real-world tips for actually implementing these changes?
Well, he offers a lot of practical advice.
Okay, like what?
Things like meal prepping on weekends.
Okay, so you have healthy meals ready to go.
Exactly.
Okay.
Keeping healthy snacks on hand.
Right, so you're not tempted to reach for the junk food.
Exactly. And he also talks about being mindful of hidden carbs.
Oh, yeah, those sneaky carbs.
Right, because there are a lot of processed foods that seem healthy,
Mm-hmm.
but are actually loaded with sugar and refined grains.
Okay, so reading labels is key.
Absolutely. Sugar can be lurking in some pretty unexpected places.
It's amazing how those carbs can add up.
It really is.
But let's say we're following the program, we're feeling great. How can we actually measure our progress?
Well, he recommends regular blood work, specifically checking your fasting insulin levels,
Okay.
your hemoglobin A1C, vitamin D levels, and homocysteine levels.
So we're tracking these biomarkers to make sure we're on the right track.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself to take control of your health.
I like that.
And it's not just about the physical benefits.
Right.
These lifestyle changes can also have a profound impact on your mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. When we're fueling our bodies with the right nutrients, moving our bodies regularly, prioritizing sleep,
Mm-hmm.
it's only natural that we're going to feel more energized, focused, and emotionally balanced.
It's all connected.
It really is. And one of the most amazing takeaways from Grain Brain
Yeah.
is this idea that we actually have the power to reprogram our genes for better health.
Through the choices we make every day.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
It is. It's a message of hope and possibility.
It is. We're not just stuck with the genes we were given.
Nope, we have the power to change our destiny.
That's pretty incredible. Okay, so we've covered Dr. Perlmutter's 4-week program. We've learned about the power of fasting, the importance of a grain-brain-free diet, the benefits of exercise and sleep, and the significance of targeted supplementation.
Right.
But Dr. Perlmutter's exploration of the connection between diet and brain health actually goes even deeper.
It does.
In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some surprising connections between what we eat and a range of neurological conditions that you might not expect.
You won't want to miss it.
So we've talked about how diet, exercise, and sleep can really impact our brain health.
Right, like the foundations.
Yeah, but what really blew my mind was how Dr. Perlmutter connects food to like all these different neurological conditions.
Oh, yeah, he goes way beyond the basics.
Yeah, it's not just about preventing Alzheimer's or something.
Right, he's talking about a whole range of conditions that most people wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I was really surprised by the connection he makes between gluten and movement disorders.
Oh, yeah, like dystonia.
Yeah, dystonia, which I'll admit I had to look up.
Yeah, it's not exactly a household name.
No, but it can cause like involuntary muscle contractions and spasms.
Right, and it can be really debilitating.
Yeah, and Dr. Perlmutter shares this case study of a patient
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
who had been struggling with dystonia for years, like uncontrollable tremors and spasms.
And nothing seemed to help.
Right, but then he eliminated gluten from his diet.
Yeah.
And saw this remarkable improvement in his symptoms.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many people are out there struggling with movement disorders that could be at least partially related to their diet.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
It is. And he also suggests that gluten sensitivity could even be a contributing factor to things like ADHD and autism.
Right, those behavioral and developmental disorders.
Yeah, and there's that research he cites.
Yeah, about mothers with high levels of antibodies to gluten.
And their children being more likely to develop schizophrenia later in life.
Right, which suggests that exposure to gluten in utero could have some pretty long-term consequences for brain development.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's not just about our own health.
Right.
But about the health of future generations as well.
It's pretty profound.
It is. Okay, so let's talk about migraines, because that's another area where Dr. Perlmutter really dives deep.
He does, and he has some really interesting insights.
He does. He tells the story of this patient named Cliff.
Oh, yeah, Cliff.
Who suffered from these, totally debilitating headaches for, 3 decades.
30 years, that's a long time.
I know, and he had tried everything, all kinds of medications.
Yeah, nothing seemed to work.
Right, but it turns out that he was highly sensitive to both gluten and dairy.
So Dr. Perlmutter told him to eliminate those foods.
Yeah, and within a few months,
his headaches were basically gone.
It's amazing how much of a difference diet can make.
It really is.
Yeah.
I said food is medicine.
It is, but migraines aren't the only type of headache that he talks about. He also explores the connection between diet and seizures.
Oh, yeah. And that's where the ketogenic diet comes in.
Yeah, that high-fat, very low-carb diet.
Which he suggests can be a really effective treatment for epilepsy.
I've heard about the ketogenic diet, but I don't really understand how it works.
Well, it basically forces the body to burn fat for fuel instead of glucose.
Oh, okay.
And the ketones that are produced during this process are thought to have anticonvulsant properties.
So they could actually help reduce seizure activity.
Exactly.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It is. It's like switching the brain to a different type of energy source.
Right, and that can make all the difference.
It can. And he also talks about the connection between diet and mental health conditions.
Oh, yeah, like depression and anxiety. And he argues that the inflammation triggered by a high-carb diet.
Yeah, that constant inflammation
can really contribute to those mood imbalances.
Right, and make those symptoms even worse.
And he also kind of questions the widespread use of antidepressants.
He does. He suggests that they may not be as effective as we've been led to believe.
But he's not saying that they're never appropriate.
Right, he's just encouraging us to explore all options.
Yeah, and consider the potential risks and benefits.
Because there's research showing that antidepressants are often no more effective than a placebo.
Wow, really?
And they can come with a lot of side effects.
Yeah, so it's about being informed and making the best choices for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if antidepressants aren't always the answer, what does Dr. Perlmutter suggest for dealing with mental health challenges?
Well, he really emphasizes those lifestyle changes.
Like diet and exercise.
Yeah, and stress management techniques.
And, of course, getting enough sleep.
It's about taking a holistic approach to mental well-being.
Right. It's not just about masking symptoms.
It's about addressing the root causes.
And speaking of sleep, Dr. Perlmutter makes some really interesting connections there, too.
He does. He talks about how blood sugar fluctuations
from eating too many carbs
can really disrupt sleep patterns
and contribute to insomnia.
And he also talks about how food sensitivities can impact sleep.
Yeah, like he tells that story about the patient whose son was having trouble sleeping.
Oh, yeah, and once they figured out his food sensitivity,
and sleep problems just disappeared.
It's amazing how interconnected our bodies really are.
It is, and it just shows how much power we have to influence our health through the choices we make.
Yeah, and that's really the takeaway from Grain Brain.
It's a message of hope and empowerment.
It is. We can prevent and manage these conditions.
And improve our overall brain health and well-being.
Just by making some simple changes to our lifestyle.
Exactly. So it's about taking back control of our health.
And making choices that support our brains.
Yeah, choices that support our brain's longevity and vitality.
Because if we can reprogram our genes for better health through lifestyle choices.
Just imagine the possibilities.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is. And that concludes our deep dive into Grain Brain.
Wow, we covered a lot.
We did. We talked about the impact of carbs and gluten, the potential downsides of statins, the importance of exercise, sleep, and stress management.
It's a lot to process.
It is, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Grain Brain is packed with even more information.
It is. So if you're interested in learning more,
I highly recommend checking out the book.
yeah, and remember, the fate of your brain is in your hands.
You have the power to make choices that support its longevity and vitality.
So make those choices and live a long, healthy, and vibrant life.